In today's video, we're going to be looking at why this lady here tried to arrange the murder of her husband here by the use of a hitman arranged from a guy that was in jail already for 3 homicides. It's a crazy story, but let's get into it. Now, Ghost Adventures is an incredibly popular TV show. It follows a group of people who go to haunted places and bring equipment to try and connect with the dead. Aaron Goodwin has been on the show for over a decade, and he has made the show incredibly popular. He has a huge fan base and people will follow his exploits all over the world. But it's his private life that we're going to be talking about today. And, unfortunately, this involves a plot by his wife to have him murdered. Now, Aaron and Victoria would marry in 2022. They would actually divorce in 2025, but we'll get to that reason in a moment. However, to the outside world, everything looked fine. Their relationship looked healthy, they seemed happy with each other. Plenty of images on Instagram would also lead to that conclusion. However, it's inside the relationship that we're led to believe that things were strained. So much so, in fact, that Victoria actually wanted to get a divorce. Now, we can only speculate as to why Victoria may have wanted a divorce. It's possible that the 16-year age gap between the two played some part. It's also possible that Aaron's hectic work schedule also played a part in maybe her feeling a bit alone and isolated at home. Add to that, you also had the fact that Victoria sat down one day and she watched a TV program called Control Alt Desire. One of the participants on this particular show was called Grant Amato. Now, he was in jail for 3 homicides. He murdered his mother, his father, and his brother. The guy was, to all intents and purposes, a bit of a psycho. And yet she decided to start a communication with him, eventually ending in them becoming, quote-unquote, pen pals. During these frequent communications with each other, it's evident that Victoria started to fall in love with Grant. She would often tell him this, and she would also tell him about how her home life made her feel isolated. She would also express her desires to him to get a divorce. But Aaron, clearly still in love with Victoria at the time, did not want to give her that divorce. And he was adamant that if they just worked harder at their relationship, things could be salvaged. And so when it became very clear to Victoria that Aaron was dead set on not actually going through with a divorce, she decided to put another plan into place, one that involved Grant arranging to get a hitman on the outside to take her husband out. Grant Amato had smuggled into the jail a mobile phone, and it was that communications device which enabled him to speak to Victoria on the outside. And it was in these conversations where Victoria said to him, "Do you know anybody on the outside who could do a hit for me?" And obviously, Grant being in jail and knowing other people inside of the jail, he was able to ask around, and he assured her that he knew somebody on the outside who would, for a fee, take him out. And so during this exchange, a fee was set, $11,515. That would be the amount that was put on Aaron's head. That was the cost of his life in the eyes of Victoria. And so on the 3rd of October 2024, Grant received images of what Aaron looked like. He also received information including where he would be staying, what town he was in, the people he was with, everything he needed to pass that information on to the hitman, who could then complete the task. Later on the 3rd of October, Grant reached out to the hitman. He asked whether he had completed the killing. After hearing no response, he asked, "I need to know what's going on." Later still, he went on to say, "Can I have an update? Was it done?" Shortly after those text messages were sent, Florida corrections officers would go into the cell where Grant Amato was, and they would retrieve the mobile phone. And it also transpired that on that same day, the hitman didn't actually complete the task. And so with the mobile phone being confiscated from Grant Amato, there was no way for Victoria Goodwin to communicate with him. And so that was the end of their conversations. Victoria would obviously find out in the coming days that Aaron was still alive and hadn't been taken out, and now she had no way to communicate with Grant. She had no idea what was going on, so she played the dutiful wife. And that worked out perfectly, right until the 4th of March of this year, when the corrections officers decided to go through the mobile phone that Grant Amato had been using, and they were able to see the text messages between the two. It was then that they decided to reach out to the police, and the police thought, it's time to bring Victoria in. I think we need to have a chat with her. When they brought her in, they realised that she had been making plans to have her husband murdered, and so she was charged with solicitation to commit murder and conspiracy to commit murder. And obviously, after being informed of his wife's desires to have him murdered, Aaron filed for divorce on the 12th of March. And in April of this year, the charges of solicitation to commit murder were actually dropped in a plea deal. The plea deal being that she would admit to the crime of conspiracy to commit murder, to which she was actually sentenced for a pitiful 36 months to 90 months in jail. And this to me is the most shocking part of this entire story, is how does somebody literally line up all the dominoes in a row for them to fall over in the correct order and only get 36 months in jail? You see, she gave out a photograph, she gave out addresses, dates, times, locations of where her husband would be, and her last communications with Grant were of somebody that was incredibly excited for this to actually happen. Let's have a look at some of the text messages that she sent. How did I get to this point? Am I a bad person because I chose to end his existence and not a divorce? That there is a pure admission that she is the only person responsible, her decision to end somebody's life. It was her decision to put this into motion. It was her decision to actually follow through with that, to choose to end his existence. This is all spelt out for the police. 36 months when you have done everything in your power to make this a reality. The only thing that failed was the hitman at the end didn't fulfill the task. Had it happened, then you would have been up for murder. And I feel that the person should have been given a life sentence. I believe that Victoria Goodwin deserved to have a life sentence for this, because aside from things out of her control, she did everything possible to make sure that she was responsible for ending her husband's life. And her excuses afterwards, saying that she didn't really mean it, that she had no intentions of actually seeing it through, and it was all some kind of fantasy, can be completely debunked by what she said here. She said, "I'm so anxious, LOLOL, all in capital letters. I just can't believe this is happening." Now that sounds to me like excitement. Somebody that was incredibly happy for this to be going forward. This was definitely not somebody who'd had a change of heart, who was just simply going with the flow and having a fantasy that she was dreaming about, as alleged by her defense at the trial. And I just don't buy it for 1 minute. I do not believe for a minute that Aaron is safe. I think this woman, when she comes out, is going to absolutely destroy him, because he will know that she will know exactly where he is at all times. He's a famous celebrity. He goes on these journeys. She will know where he is, and he will be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that somebody who had the intention to take you out and did everything possible should ever get out of jail, because it's not fair on the victim. And the victim in this case clearly was Aaron Goodwin. Now, if you like today's story and you want to see more, check out my channel. There are videos beneath me right now. You can also subscribe Don't forget to click the notification button. And I've been Mr. AU. I'll see you all in the next one.